Made me suffer, I watched them ball. Hated on my, I hate them niggas.
What's good, everybody? What's good? It's your boy, Cardinal Bud Crawford, or E.S. Red, if that's what you want to call me. And we are back for another one. Alright, y'all. New topic. How Errol Spence has already beaten the will and desire out of Terrence Bud Crawford. Okay, y'all, so everybody seems to be talking about this. It was a tweet that Errol Spence put out earlier this week, and it said that he was going to beat the will and desire out of Terrence Bud Crawford. And I actually beg to differ with what he had to say. I think when they get in the ring, he's actually going to beat him. But I think he's already beaten the will and desire out of Terrence Crawford. And why do I feel that way? Because of the negotiating process. Because Terrence Crawford is the one who left his promotional company, his promoter, all his best ties that he had in the sport. You know, he just completely changed everything about his camp and his way of going about the sport of boxing, all to secure a fight with Errol Spence Jr. This is the same guy who says that he is pound for pound the best in boxing, yet you're having to negotiate your way down to make a fight with Errol Spence Jr. It's not that Errol Spence Jr. is negotiating his way down to try to meet you at a certain number. It's you negotiating your way down so that you can secure the fight with Errol Spence Jr. Not only that, he's not getting an equal split of the pay-per-view. He's not going to get an equal split of the gate. He's not going to get an equal split when it comes to the purse. So I think that he's already broken Terrence Crawford's will. Obviously, Terrence Crawford's upset with the whole situation, or he would have signed off on the fight by this point already anyway. And as much as everybody keeps saying this fight's going to be signed, it still isn't signed yet. I know we're getting close, and I'm pretty sure it's going to happen this year, but the fact of the matter is it's not signed yet. And what else could it be other than Terrence Crawford's will and his desire is telling him not to do it? But you know, in your heart of hearts, he's going to eventually have to sign off on that, or he's going to probably have to face Boots Ennis or Virgil Ortiz, which is even more dangerous than a Errol Spence fight, because there's nothing for him to gain off of those fights. It would be different if he could have fought Boots or Virgil, and they're already established superstars within the sport. Now, they're already established stars when it comes to purist boxing fans, but the casuals are not tuning into or purchasing their fights yet. So even if he was to fight one of them, he would not get as much money as he would off a Pacquiao or Spence or Floyd Mayweather or a Keith Thurman fight. And the chances of him losing are just as high as they are if he was to fight Errol Spence Jr. tomorrow. So I would say that his will and desire have already been broken by Errol Spence Jr. I think his will and desire were broken a long time ago, and the fact that he's obviously jealous of what Errol Spence has going on, and the amounts of money that Errol Spence is able to command, and the fact that Errol Spence actually sells his pay-per-views, that Errol Spence has a working relationship with his promoter. He might not have the best relationship with one of the co-founders or co-owners of PBC, which is Floyd Mayweather. They obviously are on two different pages when it comes to Spence versus Crawford, but he has the majority of respect from the upper echelon of PBC, where Terrence Crawford, he's pretty much on the island by himself. And I made a video about a year and a half ago saying that Terrence Crawford is on Top Rank Island. He's no longer on Top Rank Island. Now he's stuck on his own island, and if he doesn't win, there's a possibility that island might sink completely and just be forgotten about, you know. It's almost like Errol Spence's already beaten him. Errol Spence's already won this fight. There's so much for Terence Crawford to lose. You might as well say that his will and desire have already been broken. Look, he's already talked about retiring. He's talked about leaving the welterweight division completely. He's talked about walking away from the Errol Spence fight. He's complained about the money. He's complained about the venues. He's complained about the back end. There's nothing that he hasn't complained about. And when you're complaining that much, that means that your will and desire is already broken. That means you're not getting what you wanted or what you want, and someone else is dictating the situation or commanding the situation. And to me, that is a direct hit to your will and your desire. And I think that's what Errol Spence meant. I don't think he means that I'm going to get in there and physically beat the will and desire out of him. In all actuality, I don't even think he has to do that. I think his skills are going to break Terence Crawford down from round 1 to round whatever round it ends in. But I think mentally and physically, they've already beaten him down with this negotiating process, with him thinking he was going to get this super high amount of money for the Errol Spence Jr. fight and not getting it, thinking that he was going to get, you know, the A-side billing for the fight, thinking that he was going to get a better venue for the fight, thinking he was going to get more fans, like more of his fans to voice their opinion and try to dictate to Errol Spence Jr. and force him into making some irrational decisions. I think they feel like they've already beaten his will and his desire down into the mud. It's going to be hard for Terence Crawford to reestablish himself if he loses this fight. This is a no-lose situation for Terence Crawford. If he loses, his career is pretty much a done deal. People call it a journeyman. I don't even think he gets journeyman status. I think if he loses, it's retirement for Crawford. That's it. I don't think it's going to be a question of when. I think it's a question of if he loses, especially if he loses twice, it's a wrap. It's a done deal. I think Terence Crawford has too much pride and integrity to lose a fight and then embarrass himself having to take a step backwards or get into the ring and perhaps be talked down to by a younger opponent or another opponent. Or even be put through the same situations he's being put through to get this Spence fight. Let me know what y'all think down in the comment section below. Has Errol Spence Jr. already broken Terence Crawford's will and desire, and it's just an inevitability of when this fight happens to when Terence Crawford retires? Hit that like button for me, share, subscribe, tell a friend, holler at me on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. But you're more than likely to get a response on the tubes, so holler at me over there if you want a response. It's your boy Cardinal Bud Crawford, or E.S. Red, if that's what you want to call me, and we are
my granny on her, my mom on her. I come from the hood, I flex my muscle.